From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Hi, welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya. Tonight we're talking about Anon. It's a 2018 sci-fi film written and directed by Andre Nicole and starring Clive Owen and Amanda Seyfried. So consider this your spoiler warning.
Yes, you better turn back now if you haven't seen this film, because we're going to talk all about it.
So then come back and listen in to episode 19, of Space Brains.
Holy moly.
So what was your number one takeaway?
The great thing that Anon said, I was thinking, what was her name? We actually don't know her name, hence the name of the film. Anon, she said, it's not that I have anything to hide, it's I've got nothing I want you to see.
Yeah, nice line.
That's a lovely thing there, and I thought, yeah, that's the way it is, isn't it?
It definitely is, yeah. And because this film speaks so much about that whole privacy and data online, really, doesn't it? But set in a future version of that.
I think when I ask you, is this a hope, warning, or experiment? I would guess your answer, but you tell me what it was.
I think it's a warning.
Warning.
Probably basically because of that whole data breach and privacy and how much how much we put ourselves out there currently, but then this film takes it to a whole nother level, doesn't it?
The interesting thing they also point out here is part of it was kind of obvious what here, but there's some secret parts.
There was.
Is how much they rely on, how much we rely on this information.
Definitely.
Once they didn't have this access through their net to get a hold of who Anon was and all the rest of it, the police were useless.
Yeah, and Clive Owen's character actually says a really great line very early on. He's like, we're actually going to have to solve this crime the old-fashioned way. It's that real sort of... And it's when that happened, that was a part of me. I kind of giggled a little bit in that, oh, this is a detective film, but it's sci-fi. Like, it kind of ticked both those boxes. And it was almost like that was what the writer was doing there, wasn't it?
There's a bit of a noir feel, where you've got the femme fatale and
definitely
the hard-bitten, divorced, drinking, smoking detective,
Yes, with the checkered past, the child and stuff. So... yeah, it was really great, this film. I was really satisfied at the end of this film. Like, I thought it ticked so many really good boxes in the sci-fi world. I really did love that opening, that when he's walking down the street and you're seeing how all that digital world exists. And because he's walking down the street and you get to see, there's fake billboards on buildings, and then he looks at someone and it kind of brings up their data file, then he looks at someone else and it's their data file. And even cars, like a car drives past and it says it's a replica, blah, blah, blah. It was a really cool way of introducing the world to us very quickly. And of course, then he does walk past Anon, who, what is it right up?
It glitches, says error.
Error, unknown.
Yeah. Unknown file or something?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So it was really, really interesting. So what have you been up to, Surrey?
But Surrey has finished writing his books, and I've actually started writing a new book, which is How to Write a Book.
Nice.
It's nice and sort of...
You've written the 3 books now?
So I've written the 3 books.
Are they published, or are you...
number 1 is up there and available. Number 2...
That's on Amazon?
The number 2 is waiting for me to click the button.
Mm-hmm.
I've sort of... Well, what I've done is I've actually gone through and just straightened a few things out with number 1, having received my printed copy, hard copy of number 1. I've sort of looked at the formatting and decided there's a couple tweaks I wanted to make, just to some font changes and some other formatting stuff.
Yeah.
Number 3 is written. It needs to be revised,
Yeah.
edited, basically a little bit. And whilst I'm sort of doing that, I'm also doing an edit and proofread of a friend's book, How to Make Friends.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
Nice.
It's a how-to guide.
How to make friends.
Yeah. So now I'm putting together how, because in order to write my books and so forth, I've got quite a history of writing and not finishing, and then I spend a lot of time actually researching how, different structures for narratives, how to fit things together.
Yeah.
And then, at how big each part of the book should be, at what point should inciting incident, which is something I learned in my researches.
Yeah.
And then on top of that is the physical and practical aspects of self-publishing, which is how do you format a document so that it will be publishable?
Yep.
How do you make an ebook so that will go onto Kindle, for example?
Yeah.
So there's all that sort of information there, which I've taken note of, and I'm now going to collate and I've synthesized it a bit with some of my own creativity to produce I think it's basically 8-step guide to writing a novel.
Yeah,
and if you go through this step by step and actually do the work that I say, you will end up with a novel. And it will have an appropriate plot.
Yeah.
So it'll have the right ups and downs. It'll finish at the right place. It'll start at the right place. I can't guarantee how well you write it or whether you choose a good story, but it will be a novel that if someone read it, they would go, yes, that is
a novel.
That is a story and it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't control how well you do it.
No, of course not.
But the thing is, and you'll do it relatively quickly, efficiently, because I've written 3, 4. Yeah, I've had to go at 4 novels the inefficient way.
Yep.
Before these most recent 3.
Yep.
So the first book took me 3.5 years to write.
Yep.
And there was a lot of edits chucked on the floor.
Yep.
Tens of thousands of words. And so that took 3.5 years. These 3 books took me just under 12 months.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm hoping to bring out 4 books in this coming year.
Right, wow.
So, and it's down to being efficient. So setting up your document before you start writing so you don't waste time formatting at the end when you've got yourself like a 300, 400, 500 page manuscript and you've got to try and format it.
Yeah.
That's a pain. You want to do that up front. That's one revision less you have to do, for example.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's what I'm getting into now.
I might have to buy and read that book of yours, sorry, because I've obviously been writing scripts, but I do have a couple of ideas that I think would work better as a book. And so it's probably always been a bit of a back of the mind goal. Oh, it'd be lovely one day to write a book. I don't necessarily see myself as like an author in that way. But because I did think about that the other day with one of my ideas, and I was like, oh, this could work more as a book. But then I was thinking, I'm not too sure how you would start that. I've learnt so much over the years about script writing, but not really about writing a novel.
It's funny, I'm in the same situation. I'm thinking, it'd be really cool to do a movie treatment of Exit Planning. I've written the audio drama and the novel. And could I then, that surely is enough material to come up with a script. And I was in the same situation going, I'm not sure how you start writing a script. And so that would be a whole nother research program.
I will say Robert McKee's story, which 90% of that book, it's all about screenwriting, but he actually has a whole section on changing a novel to a script.
Oh, that would be
because so it's a part of his book.
Because I think that would be a skill in itself.
Yeah, and that's what he says. That's what he says. He's like, a lot of screenwriters think, oh, it'd be really easy. I've written a script, and then he talks about, no, it's actually quite hard. So, and I think a lot of us out there do see that, don't we? We see books that have been adapted to the screen, and if you've been a big fan of the book, you kind of get a bit disappointed a lot of the time with the film.
Yeah, often it's hard to translate media because. Yeah. There's, as people sort of say in the writing communities, they also say, don't write like it's a movie.
Yeah.
You can't.
No.
Yeah, if you imagine scenes like you would if you were seeing a movie, but you can't then write it like that because you get the opposite effect where, people watch a movie or the book and they say, oh, the book was so much richer and it felt more intimate.
Yep.
And then you get the other opposite thing where people read the book and kind of go, feels a bit distant and sort of not much. The movie's much better, you know.
Yeah. But I think I'll have to take you up on that. I'll have to buy it when you're going to let me know when that book comes out.
Yeah, it's $6 million for a pre-order.
Okay. Just put it on the Space Brains tab, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
The account. The Space Brains credit card.
Okay.
Scan that through. They'll get it on Amazon.
Well, there you go. So what else have you been up to?
Well, I've got a short film coming up.
Yes, I saw your casting call for that.
Yeah. So I've got a fair crew already set up. So I started with a cinematographer. I'd met an AD at that Screen West thing, and I kind of reached out to her, and she was available, and she's all keen.
Sorry, what's an AD?
Assistant director.
Okay. They're
pretty much there just to keep the ship running, so that then as you, the director, can kind of just really focus on that creative side. So yeah, I met with a cinematographer through a friend. I'd not worked with him previously, but I thought I'd reach out to him.
And they set up the camera shots. The camera. So you say, I want to zoom in over here and pan over there, and they know what that means and how to do it. Yeah?
And they might also turn around and sort of say, like we should be tighter, or we should be closer, or move the actor back. Like you're not
going to be able to get a good shot by going through there. That's really okay.
Or they need to figure out how to do that technically and your vision. You know what I mean? So it's got to be a working relationship. He's a bit of a younger guy, but we went and had a coffee and had a good chat and talked about the script, and he was keen. He's available. And I've also got a lighting guy that I know, so he's available. And I put out the casting call, and I've had quite a bit of reach actually. So I'm just narrowing down the exact cast right now. It's only it's just two actors, so a male and a female. So I've just now, I've got a bunch to pick from basically, which is fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, and a wide variety of actors, actually.
So, that Clive Owen and Hilary Swank?
Not yet. Might be able to pull in Hilary Swank. She did I Am Mother.
Next time she's in Australia.
Yeah. This is a low budget film, as in no one is getting paid at this point in time. There's costs involved in the film making, but no one's actually getting paid. So what I've said is, because then my goal will be for it to go out to appropriate festivals, because it's a bit of a psychological thriller. It's not sci-fi. Festivals that suits. I will try to put in as many as that during 2020. If it wins any cash prizes, well then I'll divvy that up, according to industry rates. If it wins a camera, well then I suppose I just have to take that. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's very cool.
So that's coming up in the end of November, in about a month. So
when you publish it or make it available in some way, I'm sure we'll announce it, and everyone, both of you can go out and watch it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's the thing with the festival circuit. It needs to kind of go on the festival circuit. I'll try hard for 2020.
Yeah.
And then, because none of the festivals accept it once you put it on YouTube or anything.
No.
So it's too late then. So
it's the chance then of judges seeing it and people. Yeah. No, well, that's kind of.
So it is exciting. Yeah. So, and a couple of actors that have reached out, they've got agents and all this sort of stuff. So, they're not mucking around. Yeah. So it's just whether they suit the bill. It's exciting. Yeah.
That'd be tough doing casting auditions.
Well, the hard thing as well is especially being the writer, I think you have a bit of a vision of what the character looks like, or and might not. You've got to be a bit. This is the thing. We're not Hollywood. You're not paying people. You can't exactly cast maybe the exact person, but you have an age bracket, or you have a bit of a look in your head of what they should look like. And of course, some actors reach out to you, and you're like, wow, you don't look like anything like the character I had in my head. But that could be kind of cool if you played that character, you know. So you got to be a little bit flexible, because we are talking, no one's getting paid. So that's the case. The other thing is that script of mine, One Day's Walk, I've put that on the blacklist. I Am Mother was on the blacklist. So I'm paying for that. There is a competition that Warner Brothers are looking for an unsolicited or script writer. So there's a competition. It's closing I think it closed Monday. And the opportunity then will be you will write a script for Warner Brothers. And last year they picked 2 West Australian script writers. There's an Australian-wide competition through the blacklist. And last year they did actually pick 2 West Australian scriptwriters, and they, gave them a project to write. I don't think that film's been made, but so my script, One Day's Walk, is up there as a sample, of for that competition. But then it's also on the blacklist, so someone else might read it and see what happens. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it does cost $30 US a month to have it up there.
Cool.
So, yeah, you don't want it to be up there for too
long.
But,
Grant Spittori of I Am Mother said that it was when he got up on the blacklist when people, he actually started being able to talk to people.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, if you think about an I Am Mother that had I think it was about a $10 million budget at the end of the day, something around that. I mean, you do think, well, what, you put the script up and it costs you $30 a month. Like, well, it's not much in a $10 million budget, is it? So you got to kind of spend money to make money, as they say sometimes,
Yeah, it's all marketing, advertising costs, isn't it?
Yeah, anyway, so I've put it up there, and it's getting an evaluation as well from a script reader, so that's all part of the deal, so for the competition. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Awesome sauce, as they say, or at least well, as I say.
Yeah, that's the wording that you and I say. So anyway, we went in, we watched Anon, the 2018 film. He's a New Zealand Londoner filmmaker, scriptwriter and director, Andre Nicole, I believe is how you say his name.
Oh, really? I was a Nicole, but...
Or Nicole. Well, if he's out there, he might really correct us. Being from New Zealand and we're Australian, I'm sure he'll want to correct us. But look, I went back and I had a look at his credits. Gattaca.
Oh, so, yeah, I can see that, actually.
The Truman Show.
Yeah.
Right, which is not sci-fi at all.
Well, kind of.
Well, maybe it is.
It's kind of sci-fi.
Yeah, okay. Can you make the argument that that's sci-fi? Then in 2002, it's a movie called S1M1. That's sci-fi. Okay, it's about a woman, a movie's being made and the female lead leaves the production and instead the director uses a digital version and the audience think she's real.
Ah.
And it's a good film. So that's what it's called. The Terminal, that's not sci-fi.
That's Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Lord of War.
Well, he's worked with some big guys like Jim Carrey and Tom Hanks.
Yeah, these are big scripts. Okay. Lord of War, Nicolas Cage. That's not sci-fi.
But mind you, it's probably most people at some point have worked with Nicolas Cage.
I think
he's a very prolific actor, isn't he?
He's extremely prolific. In Time. Now that's a big sci-fi. Have you seen that before with Justin Timberlake and is that?
Oh no, that's where they trade.
It's all about the time.
The life of
quite a good
time.
Sci-fi that one. I liked that one.
No.
And The Host as well as in 2013, and that's about aliens coming down and taking over bodies or something. I've not actually seen that, but it is a sci-fi. And then he did in 2014, Good Kill. It's like a war movie, so it's a little bit different. And then Anon in 2018, and then apparently what's announced is Monopoly. Is his next film.
The board game.
Yeah, I think so, but it'll be a movie, right?
Oh, geez, they're really...
No, keep it positive, remember?
They really reach, don't they?
They reach sometimes. But look, this guy keeps getting gigs. I mean, like, this is what I was saying before about, like you're well established. He should be getting gigs like Monopoly, really.
Well, it's
he can say no, but
it's funny though because it's just more the case of the how you draw the movie out of a board game because they did with like Battleship.
Yeah,
I mean, I enjoyed watching the movie Battleship.
I haven't actually seen that.
It was kind of it's a straightforward sort of aliens attacks and the ship's fighter and. There's some tie-ins there to...
Oh, that's a sci-fi.
There's some tie-ins there to the board game so forth, but kind of, you're going... It didn't have to have anything to do with the board game. Like it's not like these computer game movies where there's usually a plot in the computer game so you can kind of follow a similar story. But when you're talking Monopoly, you go around a board and buy stuff.
But like you basically did the reaction of why Hollywood wants to make a movie like this, which is you're kind of like, and that's the whole thing is like an audience will go, I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
How have they turned that into
a
movie?
How is Monopoly a movie?
Like, as you just said, with Battleship, it's like, how does that become a movie? Oh, Alien. Oh, okay. I'm kind of intrigued now. Okay, so there's aliens and a navy. Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, I see that. Yeah, I want to go see what happens, Maybe Monopoly, actually, it's like a little fat man.
There's quite a... Have you seen Battleship?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't spoil it for you, but they actually structure the story quite. Yeah, well, they
There has to be a line in the
They
film.
do. They use. They have. I can't remember what the exact line is, but it's very much like that. Where where the admiral, I think.
Yeah.
Hears, the aliens blow up one of the ships.
Yeah.
And the admiral sort of goes, "Oh, you alien bastards! You sank my battleship." Well, it's something along those lines. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, well, why not?
It's quite a cleverly structured storyline to enable this battleship to be the hero. Like, it all makes sense. Like when you go through it, it's only when you look at it, the events happen and so forth, and then you look at it and kind of go, clever little buggers. You just you had to work that in there somehow, didn't you? And you managed it. Yeah. So it's actually quite well written from that point of view. You could argue that it is kind of a schlocky action film, but nothing wrong with that.
Well,
really.
Look, Andre, I mean, as I just listed, there is some really good films there. So maybe he's the man to take Monopoly and just make it into something. And he's probably going to make it sci-fi.
Yeah, why not?
You might. Like, his hit ratio, like it's like 4 or 5 out of 10 of his films are sci-fi. So he really might. So, Anon. It's a world without anonymity or crime. And a detective has to search for a murder case where there is no kind of digital evidence. Like you said before, they've got to kind of like go backwards in time and be detectives like the old days.
Yeah, they actually have to sort of piece things together.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
Yes, it is very good. Now, this film was a Netflix original to begin with. That's what it was. Netflix were obviously funded it, paid for it, but it did also get a cinema release. So it kind of transferred both worlds because apparently some production company, which I didn't write down, took it over and said, we want to put it in the cinemas as well as Netflix. So they did run it for that for a little while. Clive Owen, he's no stranger to sci-fi, is he?
No. Clive Owen.
Have I stumped? I see that your space brain is ticking away there. So
yeah,
is it?
I might say, dang, 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 dang.
It's talking and it's ticking. I can hear it from here. Because isn't it Children of what's that one? Children of the Men?
Children of Man.
Children of Man, and that's a sci-fi.
Was he in that one?
Yeah.
That was like all the world's women had become infertile and all the world's men had become infertile.
Yeah.
That was a really cool film. There's
a
really cool bit there where they have, and this is the year where the last child becomes 18.
That's right, yeah.
It's like, so it's 18 years after this event, and so there's no one under the age of 18 anymore. So they've repealed the laws. Like, now everyone can vote, everyone can drink, everyone can join the army. Like, there was no longer any children's television or entertainment. There's none of that. It's that's a fascinating concept.
Yeah. So we should go through the plot bits, hey?
Yeah. So as you said, it starts off with Clive Owen. What was his name?
I don't know. I actually did not write down his name. I didn't put it down.
Let's just call him Clive.
Clive does Clive well. He's as you said before, he's a surly, grumpy, divorced.
Smoking. Everyone smoked in this.
I know, and that was good. That was a good little bit of, kind of prop, that added to the world of this.
And that's the whole noir thing, where they're always going to be smoking.
They've got to be smoking. They've got to be, and they drank, they're not drinking beers. They're drinking.
They were constantly drinking whiskey.
Hard.
It's like it might as well have been, Mad Men, 1950s.
Pretty much.
So he's walking down the street and
we see what he sees.
Is that where?
Yeah, pretty much it does. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought there was a case he had to turn up to. No, well, he's walking down the street. He's seeing the advertisements.
He's notified of the case.
Yeah, he's seeing the advertisements. He's seeing people, and he gets this error on this woman who walks past.
Yeah.
He thinks no more sort of it because he gets notified. He's got to come in to do his work, which we see is he rocks up into an office.
He does.
Basically, and he sits at a table. And someone across the other side spins some story.
Yep.
And he looks away a little bit, and we follow his track through the net, and he brings up images.
Yeah.
So there's a woman who accuses
That's right. The maid
accuses the maid of stealing, and he still goes, "Well, I'll show you." And there's nothing there. And then the other cop says, "Why didn't you show 3 seconds before that?" And we see actually the maid did take it.
Yeah.
And he says something like, "Oh well, you didn't see what happened before that,
yeah.
where she really needs where she sold it to buy food for her kids."
Yeah,
or something.
that's right. Yeah.
And so that's the save the cat moment. That's where, despite this detective's unpleasant apparent exterior and his work and his ability to pry into people, he's clearly got a very strong morality there, where he believes in justice more so than the law.
Yeah, definitely. And we're seeing that, like, then there's like another guy that committed suicide, jumped off a building, and he can show that. So it's obviously, it sets up the premise that as a detective, he can reveal, he can access other people's files, can't he?
And look through their eyes.
Yeah.
And which is a very computer game experience, I found. And they used that a fair bit in there.
Yeah.
In this movie, where we get the sort of through the eyes, first person view.
Yeah. He's then notified of a sensitive case, I believe. I think it's an unknown file comes up, and then he's given permission by his boss. His boss kind of comes into the story, and it's revealed that there's this murder, and we see it through the vision. They're all sort of sitting there in the police station watching it, and the shooter who murders this man, we see it through the eyes that he can't see the shooter, can he?
Yeah, we see the shooter's point of view.
Yeah, we see the shooter's point of view, and the victim's in the shot, but what the victim is seeing is the shooter's point of view. So it's very confusing.
Yeah, so they're trying to see that, because, and this is what confuses the police. It's like, well, like, what do we do? Because normally all they do is they just see who committed the crime.
That's right. They can just pull up the vision.
Someone will have seen it. They even looked in a baby's eyes. So they're really sort of showing that these people have this implants from birth, essentially, where they what were they looking at the baby's eyes for?
And then at the same,
so they got
exactly, to solve the crime, they can look into anyone's eyes,
look through anyone's eyes,
and then at the same time, Clive is getting obsessed with this woman that he passed, because he looks into her, and the more he looks into her, he can't see anything. He can't see her anymore, even in his own memory. It's like she's been scrubbed.
Yeah.
And he pulls up the other people on the street on the day, and she's been scrubbed at. She's like, so you sort of see the video footage of her walking, and then she's like, it goes unknown,
glitches and goes away.
And goes blank. And so he's a bit like, well, this is suspicious. And he's trying to look at it. He also does then remember his life beforehand. So he has like this vision of a child.
Yeah, of his looking at his child lying there. It's sort of happy like images. Yeah.
Before he's the surly Clive that we know and love.
Oh yes.
And he rings his wife after looking at the memories, and his ex-wife, and they sort of have a.
It would have been his 10th birthday.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and his wife says, the wife's boyfriend or new husband says you can't just keep calling everything. And he says, we'd be 10 years old today.
Yeah.
And the guy sort of goes, yeah. And okay, that's harsh, but.
Yeah.
He would have been 10. He's not like.
Yeah.
You sort of get that feeling of the other guy sort of going, he's run out of sympathy.
Yeah.
It's like, and likewise, the ex-wife is likewise kind of, she's moved on.
Yeah.
And but poor old Clive there, he
hasn't moved on.
he's deeply upset.
Yeah, and I think actually just before that he was having sex with a woman, and she kind of stopped it all because he's
going through he's looking through things,
and she's accusing, what were you looking at? Show me. And he goes, I can't.
Because he was looking for the anonymous woman.
Anonymous woman, yeah. So she storms out. So after that, that Skype call with the ex-wife, we are then showing two lesbians going for it, on the bed, they're making out, they're getting naked, all that sort of thing. And then they're kind of blanketed the same way as the first victim.
Yeah, they suddenly start looking around,
and we're seeing this weird point of view shooter come into the room.
Like a double point of view.
Yeah, double point
side
of view.
by
That's
side.
Right.
Yeah.
It is side by side. That's right. You're right. Yeah, because there's obviously two of them. And it's very disorientating, you can see, for the victims, because they're sort of trying to feel around the room, and they can't because this shooter's coming out. And the shooter can just then walk right up to them and blow their brains out.
Yeah, boom, boom.
Boom, boom. And that's what it does. Clive gets a call that comes up on his system to go and investigate this murder as well, because it's the same sensitivity or whatever. So he flies down there. And when he gets there, there's a cop at the house where the lesbian's killed. And he's sort of talking to him through what he knows. And there's a maid downstairs.
And gave him his sight of the statements and things.
Yeah. And he realizes something like that there's someone else in the house. The shooter must still be in the house.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, turn off your data system or something, and we're going to look for her. And with that, they kind of turn to move out of the room, and he's shot, and the cop is shot dead.
Yeah, poor guy.
And Clive fires.
He was just 2 days away from retirement.
I don't think he was, actually. He was a young guy.
Didn't say that, but you can bet it was the case.
It was. I think so. And she gets away. And so poor Clive's left to kind of soak it up. So then they discuss, back at that, I loved in this film that detective's table.
Yeah, the police station. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, that detective's table, it was a cross, you know? And the thing is, in the very first scene, it's him and his boss. And then in this moment where there's suddenly a couple of other people.
Yeah.
Other detectives, or these other people, also vision people that looked at the memories. And there's 4 of them. So the first time it's there's 2 of them. And then now in this scene, there's 4 of them. Because obviously the case is escalating.
Yeah, they brought in their specialist, computer specialist consultant. Yeah,
they did. And so they discussed how they could kind of do it. And Clive comes up with this plan of going undercover, being a stockbroker or financial advisor or something. And to make it believable, they've got to kind of come up with a month-long, life story that he's got to kind of get involved.
Sort of a really boring, repetitive life. Such that when they loop it back to cover up old memories, that it's not suspicious, not too suspicious, because for a whole month he's basically does the exact same thing. So when you look back 2 months and he's still doing the exact same thing, it's like, well, how you expect that.
And I think actually the one little plot point here is because they first kind of thought, oh, can we lure out the Anon because she met them in person and go back over their memories kind of thing. But when they start looking back into those victims' memories, it's all just scrubbed.
Yeah.
There's no sort of meeting Anon or anything, is it?
No.
So he goes out, he's like a stockbroker. He has a boring life. He's in a fancy apartment. The computer specialist is in the apartment next door to him. And he has to come up with something that then he wants a raise. So he hires this escort for the night. And the idea is that, so he has this memory of hooking up with the escort, and then he has to delete it for his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his fiance, he's going to get married. And,
so he reaches out to Anonymous on the web or something somehow,
and wants to meet them, and meets with a few people, but some of them immediately turns them away because he's looking for a woman.
Yeah.
Until finally, he's contacted by Anon, and they meet up, and they have sort of again a very noirish sort of conversation. This weird sort of tension where they're both clearly troubled people and they're a bit private, but wanting a bit of connection. You sort of got that tension in their conversation, I think.
Yeah, and he tries to trap her, but she goes, she drinks with him, and she kind of is a bit flirtatious, but then suddenly she's got the power over him, doesn't she? She kind of distracts him for a moment. She scrubs the memory.
Yeah.
And I think she's sort of saying to him, do you really have a girlfriend or fiance?
Yeah.
She kind of questions that because she's like, you've got a pretty boring nightlife.
Yeah.
Every night looks like you just come home and drink whiskey. Where's this girlfriend? Where's the memory? And that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, where is this girlfriend? Where is this fiance? I think they could have faked that for Clive, couldn't they? So she gets away because she pulls the gun on him. And she vanishes.
Again, this is very femme fatale in the noir. Is like for almost like the way a cat will suddenly turn on you and claw you, like
claw you to death.
Yeah, she's talking relatively nice with him, and then suddenly she's got this gun pointed at him,
and she backs out of the room.
And at this stage, as far as we know, she's going around killing people that she's done work for, but she backs off at this point because they also suspected that she had sex with these people.
So I think Clive was looking forward to that.
I think instead of
he was kind of a bit open to that. So he had his gun. He had his gun packed away. He wasn't quite, on his best, so to speak.
But yeah, she goes away, and so he's got to come up with another reason.
Then we go back to that police station. Now the FBI get involved, and that grumpy guy gets involved, and there's and then I didn't quite actually get it, but they somehow had access to her. Or they traced her somehow.
Yeah, so the computer specialist dude was basically monitoring when she turned up because everyone has a constantly on connection to the internet. Basically, like a cell connection.
Wi-Fi,
And so the idea is that if he could get close enough to her head, which she walked past the apartment and hung around,
he could connect.
Then he could find out what route she's taking, trace through, and so long as she maintains that connection, that they could connect back to her. So they could connect back to her and look through her eyes.
Yeah. And so they're looking through and it's her apartment. But there's not really anything identifiable. They can't.
And she doesn't look out the windows.
She doesn't look out the windows.
And then she stops in front of the mirror.
She does, to give Clive a bit of a wink, I think, doesn't she?
Yes, and unfortunately for me, I was looking at her feet.
So you missed the wink.
I missed the clues to her location.
Yeah.
Which Clive didn't, as we find out later on.
No. Well, I think he had to think about it, didn't he? The idea of Clive in that moment is he's kind of looking at her, like in the wind.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is all the detectives there were all men.
Yeah.
And you can see them all trying to be professional while they're...
Oh, because that's right, because she derobes.
Yeah, she's getting ready for the bath.
Sorry, I was trying to... so she's in front of the mirror and she kind of like deliberately derobes.
Yeah, so stands there and looks at herself.
Yeah.
And we get a shot of these male detectives in there sort of all smirking a little bit, which I thought was kind of a bit dirty.
Yeah.
But they're all trying to be professional. But
yeah.
And I remember thinking, well, that's sort of a bit odd that she's purposefully done this.
Oh, it was deliberately, I think, that moment, like she knew something was going on.
Yeah, which I think is what clued off Clive there to what was going on.
Yeah.
To revisit that particular memory.
Yeah. And the head honcho guy, FBI or police or whatever he is, I can't quite remember what his title was, who sort of has it go. He then is like, this has to ramp up because this is bigger. Because what she's doing is she's showing that there's a hole in the whole system.
Yeah.
So that, like, he was suddenly, the stakes were raised here, so to speak.
Yeah, the whole system will fail if people can be anonymous.
Yeah, if people can be anonymous, then this government system doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, anyone can commit any crime.
Yeah, so the idea is to go back undercover.
Because she disconnects.
Yeah, she disconnects from the system.
Yeah, disconnects from that proxy and joins another.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely, but essentially the equivalent of swapping cell towers.
Yeah.
Basically, and so they lost the connection. They couldn't trace her anymore.
Yeah, anyway, so he goes back undercover, Clive, and he buys drugs, cocaine, and gets her to come back over to delete that memory. Because he doesn't want to be caught buying drugs.
She says, I get the feeling you actually just want to see me again.
Yeah, well.
Which is true.
Which is true. That's what he wanted. And then she sees the patch in his memory. And so... Oh, no, sorry. They have cocaine. She comes over, so they have cocaine together.
A bit of cocaine. And what else did they have?
They have sex.
They have a bit of sex together.
They have a sexy time together. So Clive was happy that time. I think that's
he's going, finally. Yeah.
Finally. But a bit like, that allure. Again, it's that, as you said, the femme fatale. Oh, they have sex.
Yeah, but
it's the Black Widow tradition, isn't it?
It's dangerous. Because the thing is, he knows that...
She kills.
That people who have had sex with her get killed.
So.
And, so, again, there's like... he's sort of very sort of dangerous there. And sure enough, he hears the gunshot.
Yep.
And he chases out after her, and the computer specialist guy,
the cop,
can't remember his name, he's dead.
He is dead.
Shot in the head, and the elevator door closes, shunk,
Yeah.
and he just misses catching her.
Yeah, and so from here, the kind of screwdriver tightens on Clive's world, doesn't it? It's that, you know, his boss says, you stuffed up, you had sex with her, you weren't on the job, your mind wasn't on the job, go home.
And now this dude's
know,
dead.
This guy's died because you fucked up, go home. At home, he speaks to Anon, and his memories are played with, and it becomes an actual virtual reality nightmare for him. So
Yeah, that's right. His point of view gets shifted.
Yeah,
and
she starts messing with his world in a really dangerous way, and he comes out and
he thinks there's flames everywhere, and then there's something's going on, and he shoots.
He almost shoots a neighbour, and then later we see that he did shoot the neighbour.
Well, no, if the neighbour's dead, and they pulled the bullet from the wall.
Yeah.
To which you're going, well, did you pull the bullet from him?
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's the one that killed it. But obviously they didn't recover that bullet. They just sort of, because he did shoot.
Yes.
So.
And then he can't see the memories of his child anymore.
That's so sad.
It is sad,
and
isn't it?
this is particularly, because if we haven't really spoken much about the camera work in this and the sort of scenes and setting.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite noticeably stark. Like his room, and in fact, all the places they go, there's no photos on the walls. Like hanging up in my house, I've got pictures of my kids and some artwork.
Yeah.
And I call it artwork, it's that cheap stuff you get from cheap places. But nonetheless, it looks nice. And I just don't want people thinking I've got Van Gogh or something. But yeah, I've got plants and photos and stuff. And his house and all the places to go, all the walls are utterly bare. Because as you can imagine, they can project whatever photos, you know, he just looks in his mind's eye and sees pictures of his kids, videos, he's kept all the good memories, as he said.
And there was, I think, did Anon actually say it to him, which is a good definition in this film. It's like, well, they can delete these files, but you can't actually delete the memories. But then it's kind of implied that people have maybe become a bit lazy.
Yeah.
And they're like him, and they're playing these little videos, and they're drinking heavily and whatever, and then therefore they kind of lost their actual memory.
Those little videos become the memory.
The memory,
That's what they think is the memory. So they're actually just remembering the videos now.
The video,
Which
so she could delete those things, but he would have the memories. But because he's so reliant on the technology, he's kind of lost the ability to hold the memory.
Because that's the thing, is that these cops don't have any real forensic work.
No.
Because we saw at the start, the opening scene there, or the establishing image there was, he's just sitting there at a table and person after person comes through and they just evaluate. They just pull up the video and have a look at, okay, nah, he committed suicide. Nah, she didn't steal it. Nah, you're not telling the truth. Nah, you know, one after the other, they don't have to do any particular, and that's what their work is, really.
Yeah.
Every now and then they seem to actually have to do a little bit of footwork.
Yeah.
But nothing where they've actually got to try and track someone down.
So after those memories are deleted, he's accused of murdering the neighbour, and he's put under house arrest.
Yeah.
He's suspended, the good old, give us your gun and your badge.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure that if a cop just sort of pulled his gun and dropped it on the desk and walked out, they'd be like, no, you got to sign this out properly.
Yeah.
You don't just drop it here.
Not in the movies, sorry. They just go boom. And they just
in the movie they just dump it there. I've got a police officer friend who does the firearms training and so forth at the academy.
I'm sure you're exactly right.
I'm going to ask him. I have a strange feeling that you've actually got to go to the armory and have it signed back in.
I think so.
And accounted for.
That's boring in a film. Come on, we don't want
that. Buy book.
But look, look, Clive here is extremely clever. So there's a guy out on the street watching him. They can look at his memories. There's the guy back at the FBI. You see the FBI of that table room. He's watching his memories. They can see anything you bloody do. They've got access to you. There's someone outside his apartment. But Clive is very clever here.
What does he do?
No, I was going, what the hell is he going to do? But he goes to bed, fully dressed, lies down.
But that's
slowly.
I get the feeling that's what he does anyway.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because he drinks enough whiskey and then he lies down.
Surely
and has a
he'd just be passed out with a whiskey bottle. But anyway, he implies he does the blinking of the eyes, fall into sleep slowly. Like a Sesame Street character or something. And then he's got his eyes shut, He gets back up and he like clambers around the apartment blind. And of course, we see that the FBI guy's like, oh, he's asleep, but he still keeps watching it. And he manages to get himself out of the apartment all the way downstairs. And he's sort of like the hallway leading to the exit of the building, gets him all the way to the exit of the building. And we kind of have a nice like jump cut of then inside the car of the detective, sitting out the front of his place. And then that's when Clive opens his eyes and attacks him,
knocks him out.
Bloody clever, that scene, I reckon.
Yeah.
That was really cool. So yeah, he does that, and then he goes. This is what you said before. When they were watching her, he did notice something in the window, didn't he?
Yeah.
He noticed, and here, that's the thing. He goes to the building. I think we get a little flash of him seeing that or something.
Yeah, he gets it's sort of like a little
memory,
little 3D overlay where he sees like the clock tower or whatever it is, and then like that gets outlined, and the little line projects across to the line of sight that you'd have to have, and it highlights an apartment up on the top floor of a building.
Yeah. And
so he goes, bingo.
Yeah. So then he's in her building and he's in her apartment, but yeah, what does she do in that bit?
She talks to him.
She talks to him, yeah, on the other side
of the wall. She says, there's no point in you trying to sneak up on me. I can see through your eyes.
Yeah.
And so he ducks and hides because he's expecting to be shot. But I think she's getting ready for a bath or something. She's in a robe.
Yeah.
And, so he's got the gun out. We have this sort of conversation going where they're sort of a bit back and forth, why'd you do it? What's going on?
And she shows him that it wasn't her that killed the technician. That's what she
That's
does.
right, yeah. So she shows her point of view.
Memory, yeah.
That she
heard the
gunshot and went, crap, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, and flee.
And she ran.
Yeah.
And she didn't go down the elevator. She went through the fire escape.
Yeah. But then she escapes out of her apartment, and he kind of comes down. All the cops have rolled up.
Yeah.
Because they realised that he had knocked out the other one and got there. And this is where he is totally suspended. He's no longer a cop. And then so he's back at his house. She rocks up. She's outside the building.
Yeah, we see her turning up.
Yeah, and she, through the digital platform thing, sets up, sort of like a fake thing that all cops must attend some.
Yeah, because she speaks to him.
Yeah.
And says, I'm coming to see him. So while I'm being watched.
Yeah.
Not for long. And there's cop got shot.
Yeah, cop. Yeah.
Police officer down, all hands on deck type of deal.
So the cop that was outside his building disappears, goes off. And she sort of comes up to his apartment, and then the actual bad guy rocks.
And
it's a surprise.
But we don't know it's the actual bad guy at that point because we get through the bad guy's eyes.
Yes.
And Clive Owen is
suddenly
disoriented. He's sort of feeling around, and he grabs his gun and he's trying to work out where this guy is, and takes a shot and misses, and because we know he obviously knows his apartment very well.
Yep.
Because he walked through with his eyes shut before without having too much trouble.
And he's Clive Owen in this film, so he's a detective. He's a tough detective. He knows.
He was the only detective who actually wasn't looking at boobies when she was looking in the mirror.
That's right.
Which, as I said, I have to admit, I did not notice the clue. So I really should have been a bit more observant there and have my detective cap on. Yeah,
so he kind of is disorientated. He has his shot, but he gets shot. Clive gets shot. And he kind of like hits on the ground. The bad guy grabs Anon and kind of pulls her up against the wall and sort of saying, you and I.
Yeah, it's like just as mad talk, crazy talk.
It was crazy.
And she's kind of going, you're a bit crazy, but I'm going to just try and say the things that make you not shoot me.
Yeah.
Because she can sort of see
Clive's away.
sort of reaching out for the gun because Clive's still seeing through the shooter's eye. So he's sort of reaching for his gun, and as you'd expect, he ends up grabbing the gun, rolls over and shoots the bad guy.
Yeah.
Now, am I correct in saying that bad guy was actually one of the investigators who was on the case?
Yeah, and but then when we're back at the police station after that, we recognised him. He was one of those FBI agents, one of the specialists that was brought in, and then in that scene they kind of say, well, who authorised?
Yeah, who hired him? I thought you recommended him.
You told us that big head honcho. You told us to hire him, and it was like, No, he must have infiltrated and sent a
I
message.
said nothing of the sort. I assumed that
You hired him.
You hired him, yeah.
So this guy had come off the street. He was actually not FBI.
He George Costanza it.
He did. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, he was the George Costanza. So he'd obviously had that as his intention. He wanted to get close to Anon and kind of bring down the system from the inside. And then this film, very much like it's like a noir film, but also like it made me feel a bit like one of those spy endings that suddenly at the end they kind of meet at this point, Clive and Anon, and they have like a real poignant conversation.
Yeah, they have that little bit, why do you want to be anonymous all the time? And that's where she says that things, he says, why do you want to be anonymous? What have you got to hide? And she said, it's not that I've got anything to hide, it's just I've got nothing I want you to see.
Yeah.
Which,
really good line. I wrote that down.
Which is a whole, because nowadays you get this same question as well. If you've got nothing to hide, you say, but I've got nothing I want you to see. Like, it's not that I'm trying to hide anything. It's just, it's none of your business.
I've got nothing I want to show you. So it's a good point, because if in this world, in Anon, like, that's me. You look at a bike and it tells you what the bike is. I look at you and it tells you everything about your job and your age and all these sort of things. Like, well, yeah, like, what, you don't have to share everything, but that's the idea of the premise of this, is like everything is shared.
It's kind of that inversion of power, and that's a comment really on society. And I think that's one of my pet peeves, is that there is an inversion of power. So if you were to remove all other means of knowledge, when someone meets you, you're both at the same disadvantage.
Yeah.
You don't know each other, and you both have the same advantage that you can choose what you present. So you could imagine trying to go for a job in this world where, and not saying that you lie at job interviews, but your professional persona is often quite different from your house persona.
Yeah, that's right.
The way people, you hear it when people answer phones. I remember my wife used to work at the call center, and she would answer the phone, and she'd developed this manner. She'd answer the phone, didn't matter who was calling.
Yeah.
But her voice changed and the way she spoke changed. She suddenly enunciated very clearly and had a very even level tone. And, and I'd sort of watch her talking to someone on the phone, and it's like, that's not how you talk at all. That's like anyone, the other person on the end of the phone is going to have a very particular view of you.
Yeah.
But that's your prerogative. That's your right. You get to choose that, how you present yourself.
Definitely.
Of course, in this world, you end up with a situation where you don't get to make that choice.
No, because that's that whole point, isn't it? Like, she was gonna, if she continued, if this crimes continued, the whole system would kind of basically be flawed then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's a terrible way of achieving it.
Yeah.
That goal.
But I do.
It's not an unworthy goal.
No, of course it's terrible. But I mean, I do think the premise of this is not that far. This is one of those sci-fi films that it's not that far removed from our current world in a way.
Here in Australia, there's that law the government passed, which I just can't believe how boneheaded this is, where the government can require a company to build a backdoor into their systems, because for some crazy reason, the government is afraid of encryption.
Yeah.
Not realizing that encryption works for everyone, or it works for no one. Like, that's just the way it is. As you can see, the DVD industry said, "Oh, we've got this unbreakable DVD encryption," and months later, it's broken. You can rip whatever DVD you want. Because it had to have a flaw in it by design in order for DVD players to be able to play. If the DVD player can decrypt it and play it, that means the key is sitting there on the DVD player. And likewise, if the Australian government has said, we can require you to build in backdoors, well, that means that any company can't trust anything from Australia. Like, Australia and Australian companies are inherently untrustworthy if you're talking about high levels of trust. And the United States have similar... They don't have a backdoor law, but they've got this other law where the government can require all information about everything. And then you're not allowed to tell anyone that you've had this information taken if the government takes it. So you end up
Yeah.
with, so a lot of companies in the States that operate on trust and security actually have what's called a canary in the coal mine. So you're not allowed to tell people that you've had their information requested or taken by the government.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to tell people that they haven't had the information taken. So they'll have a web page which just says, we have not had any information requested by the government. And then if that page goes down, well, the absence of information becomes information in itself.
I wonder if Surrey, because of those metadata laws that came in here 4 or 5 years ago now, I wonder if
again, that's just...
I know, but I wonder if that then is the same as that law really in the US, and in fact, because that's a law here, they don't need like a company because that's the thing that just is that collection of data, and it is collect. That's the thing. The metadata law makes it that everything is collected, and the telecommunication companies have to store that, and then it's if federal agencies want to access it, they can, and you don't get told if they've accessed that.
See
that what you're saying there is in the US maybe that they have to say, well, something's been accessed, but we don't have to tell you what it is. Whereas here it's like, well, we don't even have to tell you that it was accessed.
No. I mean, that's the thing. And it's kind of a bit silly again. And I think it relies on the fact, and there's a problem. Basically, the criminals you're going to catch are the dumb criminals. You still have the same difficulty trying to catch the smart, organized criminals. Like that's almost a constant level and constant problem. And these new laws that they brought in, metadata laws and this other introduced backdoors laws.
And then the journalism laws that they're bringing in.
That doesn't catch the smart criminals.
No.
Like it still doesn't.
No.
Because, for example, my email is transmitted encrypted end-to-end from my computer using software that I installed myself from an open source system which doesn't have any backdoors in it, to a server or an email server that I own in the United States, which is also encrypted at rest with my own private keys.
Yeah.
So there is no metadata for them to look at. And I'm not a criminal or anything, but they wouldn't know. They're only going to catch the idiots, and they always catch the idiots.
Yeah.
Because most people who commit crimes are not committing them out of some premeditated master's plan of great intelligence.
No.
They're usually opportunities or out of anger or
moment in time.
Yeah, a moment of
opportunity
something. It's so
money.
You're still not catching the people. All you've done is reduced the security of everyone.
You have.
Because as soon as you put a backdoor in the government can use, everyone will use it.
That's right.
And that was shown with things like these Russian state hackers and the Chinese hackers and things. Like if the Australian government required someone to put a security hole in their software, the government is being watched by other governments.
Yeah.
And if I assume Asia operates on the principle that they are being watched at all times.
Yeah.
It would just be a matter of time before the Chinese or the Russians or the Greek or the UK or the Americans would have access to this backdoor, and us would be able to compromise whatever security our government can compromise.
Well, they are in that Edward Snowden information. Australia is part of that.
Five Eyes. I think it's Five Eyes, UK, US, Australia.
Basically means that information is readily available anyway. So if someone in the US, like a US CIA or whatever, or NSA says, oh, we actually want to look at stuff, they hand it over.
They might give me a job.
They might. And that's why they might want to look into you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not necessarily all evil stuff. It's just literally, it's a sharing of information.
Yeah.
So it's information. The reason why we have those metadata laws and that, it's like, well, information is part of the key, to put the story together, if they are trying to piece it together. But this film touched on a lot of that. So you did... do you think you can do your ladder, or have you lost your piece of paper?
I've got this scrappy bit of
your
paper.
Technological. See, they can't trace this, can they, through the interwebs?
Well, this is part of a non where they're talking about
if you put it on paper?
Well, the reason they knew that they had met up in person was because the cash was the only way they could have been anonymously transacting
That's right, yeah.
money. And I think there's another time where where Clive is very carefully not looking at his hands while he's doing something.
That's right. Yep.
He's I can't.
Well, I think,
he's getting his gun or he's doing something funny. Oh, I can't remember. But he's purposely looking away.
I think that's before he tries to go. You know, he fake sleeps. He does.
Yeah.
He does. He holsters his gun and stuff.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But
so
yes,
for me, the latter, I'm actually bringing this one in as my number 7. So we are up to episode 19, which goes in after the Beyond and above After Earth. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Like, it was a real stylized science fiction film.
Yeah.
And there was I was really satisfied at the end of this.
I'd put it similar location.
Similar number, yeah.
It's not the usual sort of storyline that I really deeply appreciate. I'm not big into this sort of detective stories.
Yeah, no, but
I really liked though the twist they had on it about the fact that there was this super modern technology, because it's a problem a lot of people have. They ask themselves, given all the technology we have available to us today, even not even in the future.
Yeah.
There's so many storylines and plot points that would be foiled by the fact that you can just look up Google Maps or you can phone someone wherever you are.
Yeah.
How do you isolate people? How do you make it difficult to actually do these things? And so they actually made that the whole point of this movie, was that it was so easy to just catch anyone doing whatever. It's like there would be little notifications going saying, "Oh, illegal act has been done, has been notified." Almost like that. What was that? Minority Report.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Like.
The predictor tells them that.
This is just shortly after the crime has happened. It's detected, and I also like the person gets warned. You're about to do something illegal. You go, oh, okay. That's a nice touch, because you go, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
I won't do that.
And I mean, in a world of information, like you mentioned before, like part of that, there was an example where a man shot another man, and they used the baby's point of view as well.
That was the baby's point of view. Yeah, sorry.
So. Even in that, it was, like, it becomes so clear cut, doesn't it, for the detective?
Yeah.
Because, like, you go, well, he pulled the gun first. You bring up their video file memory of the event, and maybe it's a little bit hard to tell, but guess what? There was a baby watching it, and the baby saw that he pulled the gun first.
Yeah, you want to scrub that from the baby's memory? Is that something that the kid wants to remember?
Well,
one of my first memories, in fact, is of someone being shot.
Yeah, but then it's not like a drawn-out court case or anything, is it? It's just, you're done.
Yeah.
You're stuffed, because we can't argue with this. And I think, there's, like I said before, something that this film, I suppose why I was satisfied is it's not, there's sci-fi, but this is not that far removed from us, this technology, I don't think. I think we could see us moving in this pathway.
Well, it's almost just an exaggerated analogy of our current
social media and
current position,
information that we put out there and all that sort of stuff, and like this stuff you've said about the government and that. So what about a favourite scene? Just one maybe off the top of your head. For me, where they, I really liked that apartment. And not just because of the boobies.
Oh, that apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I loved that idea of them, they hooked into her consensus. And I think as a film, it was a good plot point, because it was kind of like, oh, they've got something on her. She needs to look out the window. We need identifying marks. And, they got boobies out of it, but they didn't get anything. And to me, why I liked that was, as a plot point, it was like, super clever, because she unveiled something about herself, her apartment, and it was a really awesome apartment, wasn't it? It was really cool.
Yeah, it was very
very
sort of
stylized,
open plan, minimalist nouveau sort of thing.
It was very interesting, and we'll come back to that in a little bit about the film set and stuff in this film, because I think that's a really important part of this film. But and as we mentioned before, the winking, like she kind of does wink, which allude, like, I was really thinking, someone that's this smart, like, they can wipe memories and do all this sort of, she's above the system. Like I said, going right back when Clive just walked past her, and then he starts to kind of go, well, that was interesting that she had an error, and instead of just accepting, he starts looking, and in fact, everyone has been scrubbed.
Yeah.
And she's got some sort of algorithm running through the system. You kind of were thinking, well, she's a mastermind here, that she's letting them into the apartment, you know, and I think there was a bit of a comment on voyeurism that all the men did sit
all
there
sort
and
of
they looked
a bit of a smirk on their faces,
and like you said before, like the film is kind of like Mad Men. They're all in suits and they're smoking the whiskey, but they've got this vision into her, you know, into her privacy in a way, which again touches on the whole point of the film, like, you know, looking at people's privacy, like how much should we put out there, you know? You know, Ron Burgundy from Anchorman. Ron from Parks and Rec, you know, like he's like, how do they know my name? Oh, there's a thing called cookies. Smash the computer, you know, like, you know, this world that we are kind of already half in, that we put everything out there, everything's data, so much data is collected about us constantly, that this is just the extreme of that. So that scene to me really spoke to me in a lot of ways.
I quite liked the scene where it's basically two scenes, but which mirror each other. Early in the piece and then later in the piece. So the early one is where he's having sex with this woman who he sort of must be having some kind of a relationship.
Yeah, some sort of.
Clearly not a very close relationship.
No, but it was very stereotypical.
The camera,
of that detective, wasn't it? Yeah.
The camera position is up, and you can see down, and the image is almost split in half. So by the wall of his apartment.
Yep.
So you can see into his bedroom, and there's just like a light onto the bed, and it's that orangey yellow sepia sort of looking coloured light while he's with a woman, and then the rest of the apartment is just bare and empty, sterile, cold,
like his soul.
But it's not clinical looking, because it's sort of all that, I don't know what colour that is, a drab browny green or something like
green, I think.
It's kind green. Of drab, you know, like it was, all this was drab, and there's a little golden light on the bed, and it was just clearly making a statement there. And then later on we had the same camera angle where you can see into the bedroom, we've got the light still on the bed, and the bed's all messed up, but he's sitting in the room, which has only got, I think it's only got the one chair in it.
I think it does, yeah.
Just sitting in that one chair, basically staring to a wall, because they don't have TVs.
No.
Drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
And just the comparison of those two scenes, it really gave you that feeling, because there was another shot we got multiple times, very similar to that, was outside of his apartment, where you've got the street splits. Yeah. And it goes down and it goes up.
Yeah.
And there's a building that's sort of right in the middle that divides in half. So on the left-hand side, it goes up and disappears around amongst apartments. And on the right-hand side, it goes down and opens up out into a big vista over the city. And so you get this same sort of dual vision of openness and freedom, but it's down.
Yes.
And then here's one that's going up, but it's tight and it's close and it's, you know, small, and it's a confined space. And in his apartment, you've got that open, empty room, which is evenly lit, but it's just bland. It's boring as all shit. But his bedroom's got a messed up bed, and it's got this golden light on it. But later on, it's empty, but it's still messed up. Like, it's just, it speaks of a certain loneliness and a certain opportunity there. There's these two paths that you go down. And, this one's difficult, but it's freedom, and the other one's hard, but it's kind of, I really quite like that from an artistic point of view. Trying to think of any particular action scene, I did quite like his conversations with the non.
Yeah.
The way that she was kind of, you could tell she viewed everything from a different perspective to him. Yes. He'd ask these questions, and she'd almost answer in what appeared to be non sequiturs.
Yeah.
These sort of things like, what do you got to hide? And he says, well, I've got nothing to show you. And you kind of, that's... she's not being defensive. She's just statements.
I think the thing is he kind of represented the system, but then because of, he's a detective, can pass loss. He's kind of, he's sold on this, but he's not necessarily happy about it.
He never looks like when he's talking to those people
never happy in the film.
About the solving the crimes over the table there.
He doesn't look happy.
He's not enthusiastic. He's just going, okay, here's another one.
And that's what I meant about that line where he's like, I guess we're going to have to solve this the old way, the old-fashioned way. Like, and it's kind of almost like he's happy about that, because I think it was really trying to sell us that he represented he wasn't against the system because he's a detective. He's a cop. A cop can't be against the system because they stand for the system. They support this. So he's not against, but he's also. He's kind of, this world is not making him happy either.
No, he wants the system to be better than it is.
Yeah.
He's solving.
And maybe actually it's only an aha now. Like that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, he's a cop, but he gives that maid, you know, like he allows that maid to go, as you mentioned before, because she sold the jewelry for food. Like, if you think about it, like, well, he's not supporting the system there, is he? But he's seeing the bigger justice of it.
Yeah, the justice more so than
and with the non, it's not maybe necessarily that she is wiping people's memories, but it's the killing is not good enough. Like that's his moral compass, isn't it?
He didn't
you can't
really
kill people. I don't really care what you do.
Because he was upset with the boss when the boss was sort of he was saying, "Oh, we got to solve these murders," and the boss was going, "I don't give a shit about the murders."
Right. Yeah, I forgot.
Is the fact that she has avoided this system. She's going to bring it down.
The system. He's like, but what about the murders? Yeah.
Yeah. What about the people who died? People die all the time. He
right.
said something along those lines. Yeah.
That's very true, actually. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, exactly. So you saw that he was this kind of detective. Like, he upheld the system, but not necessarily, totally in favour.
Yeah.
So what about any of this quickly with the science? Sorry.
I suppose
what sticks out to you?
Well, I was going to talk about the Tor network. Have you heard of the Tor network? TOR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only know a little bit.
Also known as it's an onion network.
Yes.
So this is kind of the way Anon operated.
Right.
And so it's a pseudo-anonymous. I say pseudo-anonymous because there is a little caveat on this. But the idea is that Tor is a distributed network that overlays the internet. So you download a bit of software onto your computer and it sets up an encrypted portion of your computer, and it advertises itself as being a Tor node, which means then traffic will route through your computer, and it's all encrypted. So your computer doesn't even know what that traffic is. And as it enters your computer, it'll have it'll unwrap a layer and it'll say what the next closest place is it wants to get to, and it'll re-encrypt it with itself and pass it on until it finally gets to what's called an exit node, where it's reached the end and it'll get to where it's supposed to go to. So yeah, there are websites on this, quite famously things like the Silk Road, which you may have heard about, which is sort of part of the dark web. And basically
Can we get Space Brains on the dark web?
We could, but the problem is the Tor network, whilst I agree with the principle of this privacy, invariably what that means is it's largely used for illegal things. It's not necessarily there's a strong core of enthusiasts who promote it and use it for entirely legitimate purposes, like having their meetings about computer programming or security and cryptography, these sorts of things where they're adjacent. But it's where you're going, if you've got illegal documents, images, video, information, pirated, bits and pieces, plans stolen from, patents, whatever, you're going to hide them in the Tor network. And that's the problem. There was one time many years ago when I heard about it, this is interesting, and I downloaded the software and I got on there and I went to one of the indexes, which is sort of like because you obviously can't Google anything on the Tor network because it's all anonymous, but there are indexing sites. So I went on there and I'm just looking through, and there's stuff like, you'd imagine, story sharing places where people put their writing, poetry, there's photography sites, but then there's also just obviously evil stuff. Either people who are trying to be funny or clever, or people who are genuinely
bad.
Perverting society and culture in some way, which and I sort of I took it off because it was just like, whilst I appreciate the desire for anonymity and being able to do stuff,
security.
But the majority, as far as I can tell, most of the stuff on there was stuff I didn't want to get involved with.
Yeah.
So off it went. So they're not, I say this pseudo-anonymous because much like in Anon, she turns up to the guy's place and the security specialist scans her connection. And so long as she has that connection, they can get a hold of her. And it's the same thing with Tor. So you set up an end node, an exit node, and you listen on that, because when it comes out of the exit node, it eventually has to be decrypted so that someone can get this message.
Yeah.
And it can get to its final destination.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know where it's come from, but you know where it's gotten to. Or you can be on the entry point and you can know where it's come from, but you don't necessarily know where it's going to. So if you listen on one of those long enough, eventually stuff will come through. And so you listen to several of these, and it'll take you time. But when someone connects on and they start using that, you can then start eavesdropping on that person.
Right.
Until they, get a new random number generated and they connect somewhere else. And it's much the same as this. So anyone out there who's thinking of conducting illegal activities using the Tor network because it's going to make you super hard to find, you're kind of wrong. It will make you inconvenient to find, but if you're doing something that people want to find, you'll be found.
Yeah.
The only way of doing it is through analog. And then even then it's only being difficult because, again, it's just like if I were to write an encrypted one-time pad code and hand it to you and you had the other pad, while that message was in transit and anyone intercepted it, it would be useless to them.
Yeah.
Because it would take tens of thousands of years to decrypt. But they don't have to do that. They could just sit and wait until you decrypt it and then take a photo of your shoulder or pick it up out of the garbage bin. There's basically, and this is why I think it's foolish to try and put backdoors into encryption, because you don't need that.
Yeah.
You're only be catching stupid people anyway.
Yeah.
Anyone who's actually like a state operator, you will not catch their information. You just won't, because they will
hidden it better.
You will have to basically do old-fashioned spy work in order to get that information. You'd have to have someone physically there looking and watching and reading, so if I was going to transmit secret messages, I would do it in a very analog, in-person way using a shared one-time pad style encryption, which would basically mean that the only way you get information, particularly if it was carried orally, would be to ask the person after they've received the message what the answer is. In fact, in World War II, there's a movie about it, The Code Talkers, where they use the Navajo Indians talking in a particular dialect, which hadn't been translated to written stuff, and it certainly wasn't known by the Germans. The Germans had no clue about this, and so these Canadian soldiers would talk to their native Canadian, who would talk on the radio in their native tongue, which couldn't be translated. It was its grammar and its word usage and metaphor was such that the German it was just nonsense. It would take them decades, whatever, to figure that one out. They'd have to capture these people and then make them translate it. But then you don't know if they're telling you the truth or not.
That's right.
So that's how you'd have to do it. You have to basically come up with a language, and you have to orally transmit your codes in a way that couldn't be done. And that's just, if you can set all that up and organise that, you can organise a business and just do stuff legitimately and and get what you want.
Making the money,
which is always the thing, I think, when it comes to any criminal who's smart enough to be able to properly jink the system actually has the skills and knowledge and capability of earning a whole lot more money legitimately. Like the guy that holds up the 7-Eleven to nick the cash would make more money working at the 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
That's right.
Yeah. So there you go. That's sort of that. And it's, cryptography and this sort of stuff is becoming particularly interesting as there's a bit of a fight going on as, messaging apps, end-to-end encryption are being, people get in trouble as these Hong Kong protests. WhatsApp is being banned, and China is really trying to figure out how to stamp down on this. But China, with all of its authoritarian power, can't. They're still organizing and they're still protesting, and it's just there's ways of hiding messages and transmitting messages change faster than you can stop them. It's an arms race, and you'll never catch up.
No, you never will. Fighting technology, but the China ones are really interesting because they do have internet censorship, which they do control. But then through my dealings, I know, especially when you deal with Hong Kong, that Hong Kong students are very different to.
Yeah, they had the
because
whole
of the culture.
period up till 97 where they weren't in
they
China.
were free, so it's a very difficult thing on there. But it'll be interesting where that goes. Film language wise, you've mentioned a bit about it, and we have talked about it, like definitely film noir. And for me, it went right back to Fritz Lang. You know, like the 1930s, 1920s, 1930s for Fritz Lang, German filmmaker. And who is someone I really adore as Fritz Lang, and it's like he made Metropolis, so science fiction. That was his science fiction film, but a lot of his films were film noir films of like melodrama. You know, he made that great one about a pedophile that took children away, and this film to me, Anon, it used a lot of that, and then it also when you go back to those 1950s kind of cop movies.
It had a lot of camera work from the 50s, those still shots.
Yep.
Like a lot of movies now have really fast cuts, maybe 2-3 second shots, dynamic moving cameras. And this one, I really noticed that there's these stationary still shot, the car in the middle, the streets going up and down, and it holds that for not too long, but you definitely go, yep, there's a point.
There was a lot of
I
agree, like you said as well before about the shot having his bedroom and his lounge room, and something that's very film noir. We see a lot more what's going on. In a lot of films you don't see that. You're just in the lounge room, you're in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And the same even the city street. Even when that cop was out there watching him, we had this big wide shot, and the cop's there, and the street goes off for bloody miles.
And really
up a hill,
empty streets.
and a really empty street, and then we can see his apartment. Even though it's in a building, we can kind of make it out. So they're showing us both. They're showing busyness and loneliness all in one. A lot of shadows, deep dark shadows, so you can't see, which is very again film
very
noir,
very low
and
saturation
horror,
on this.
So that contrast, there's shadows where you don't know what's in the shadow, and again that's very similar in films like this. And I mean the film itself, when you take all the props, they had new cars, but they were old cars, weren't they?
Yeah, I love that they had that sort of 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Because as they throw to the 60s, 70s cop shows,
definitely.
But they were smooth and rounded off with nice stylized headlamps.
They did. They had modern, and inside they had kind of gadgets and stuff.
It was a good way of doing that, because some movies, particularly say through the 80s and 90s, tried to envisage future cars and things, and they looked appalling, so and you're just that's just not right. Whereas this was a good way of doing it, because it's a throwback, but you've just sort of smoothed the lines, and you could understand that could well be. In fact, there have been some recent cars out of America, the new Mustang and the 300C, which definitely have that retro, modern look.
Yeah, and I mean, and on top of that, you mentioned Man Man. I mean, so you got those kind of 60s cars. They all wore kind of the 60s suits, didn't they? They were very slim in suits. They were the smaller ties. And then when you couple that with, they're all smoking like the old days. They're all drinking like the old days. There was a lot about the film that kind of drew from those older generations, even though then it was supposed to be in some sort of future. And it was done really well. It was very clever in that way. So there's a lot of reference to those old cop movies. So I think anyone that kind of likes that referencing, you're definitely going to get that in this film. I was sitting there going, and really liking that kind of connection to other movies, which is cool. And the idea of the digital effects, seeing the web was kind of integrated really cleverly. I think we were still there, and they just brought up the shots.
Nice, simple sort of black and white wireframe usage. There was no flashy interfaces. It was just all succinct, concise.
And I think I'm pretty sure it's Minority Report, isn't it? It's where it is Minority Report, where Tom Cruise kind of grabs he's bringing stuff in from the video.
He's got all the touchscreen thing.
Yeah, the touchscreen thing. Whereas this, it's just so simple, isn't it? It's just a wire web. And it's very much, I think, how a lot of us think about the internet now. It's just like a web, like a spider's.
Yeah.
And so it was very much like that. It just kind of went along, this node, open up the node, And even when he had his secret files, it was you don't have access to that. You do have access. I'll give you access. It was really a simple kind of way of something. So it was very classic in that regard. So, and also men, I think also another way is that men dominated this.
It was all men.
It was all men.
All men except for Anon.
Yeah, which was, again, I think a connection back to those old films, the old stories that, the cops were men and the FBI
and they
were
weren't
men
young men.
No, they were all
Because if you look in the old, like the 40s and 50s movies, all the actors were old.
They were all older, yeah.
Which is why you got like James Dean was such a big deal and Elvis Presley because they were young. Like movies didn't appeal to young people back then. And you look at the old sitcoms, the old movies and stuff. They're all old middle-aged men. So yeah, whereas and in this movie the same thing. Yeah, like all the cops were all men, all just sitting around in their suits, drinking their whiskey, smoking their cigarettes.
Yeah, they're all men. I even think maybe when he did the stockbroking, they were all men as well. So it's
they're all men
like,
at the desks.
Yeah, so it's like, where are the women? Like, what are the women doing?
And we didn't see they didn't bother introducing his fiancée into that fake scene.
No.
The drug deal he went to was a man. It was just...
So, and the escorts were all women, like they were all women, like obviously. But yeah, the women were not, it's not like the women were cops. The women weren't part of the roles that you'd expect in a society. So yeah, they really set up the world in a different way. So we've got Anon, 2018 film by Andre Nicole, written and directed, starring Clive Owen and Amanda Seyfried. Well worth checking out.
Indeed. Now we're up to the interesting part of the night. What is next week's adventure?
Well, it has to be a classic film, sorry.
Oh no, a classic.
It has to be a classic. Something has bubbled in my brain.
What's that one?
Back to the Future.
Oh, that is so cool. Back to the Future.
Do you want to do Back to the Future?
Yeah, oddly enough, I've seen Back to the Future 2 more often.
Yeah.
No, 3. Yeah. Number 3 it was with the Cowboys.
Have you seen 3 the most? Oh my goodness.
For a while there, every time my parents would come over to visit at Christmas, we'd end up sitting there watching Back to the Future 3. It's sort of
3?
There's maybe 3 or 4 years in a row. It was on TV and it was just on. Sitting there and it became a tradition.
If we're going to do it, it's just going to be the first one.
Number 1, Back to the Future 1.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, that's a good film. Talk about a film that has all the beats and it's plotted like Spielberg is. I have watched a lot of Spielberg films. Some of them I haven't thought were as in my ballpark, but I think they've all been entertaining. They all tick the boxes, and at the end of it, you go, well, that was a competently made film.
Yeah, I'm entertained.
Yes.
So Back to the Future?
Back to the Future,
okay,
yes.
Episode 20, Back to the Future. All right, we'll go check out Anon. It is available at the moment on Netflix, as being a Netflix original. And listen to our podcast, get in contact, let us know what you thought about this episode. Do you agree, disagree with anything that we've talked about with Anon? And you can check us out at Twitter.
At Gravity, at Gravity Undone or at Space Brains Podcast. At Space Brains Pod on Twitter, because you got to have like a shorter handle.
Yeah, and it's Space Brain Podcast at Instagram and at Facebook. So Gravity Undone to listen, or Spotify, iTunes, all of those things.
Yeah. If you type in Space Brains in Google, you'll come up with us. You
will. So reach out, let us know, hashtag, and ask us a question. We don't mind talking about it on another episode. And
suggest a movie. Someone did suggest a movie.
Did they?
Was, Horizon. What's that one? Oh gosh. Event Horizon.
Event Horizon.
Okay,
yeah,
Horizon Point. No, Event Horizon.
Okay, that's another classic, really.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to bring that one up. Maybe episode 25.
Episode 25 should be Event Horizon. So okay.
So yes, that was actually one of the voice actors from Exit Plan. She brought that up. She said it's one of her favorite films.
Yes.
So I'll let her know when that's coming up.
Yeah. Tell her. We're going to book that in advance, episode 25. But next week we'll do Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
All right. See you later.
See ya.